VikesNow, I am Dustin Baker. We spoke with Josh Fry with his 53-man roster projection. Hope you guys enjoyed that. I'll probably have mine Monday. I think we're trending towards that. I'll outline it for you guys and gals. Let you know what I think for the 53-man cutoff, the regular season roster. But we had something fall into our laps yesterday in San Francisco. The 49ers are going to embark on the 2023 season with Brock Purdy at QB1, which isn't too surprising considering how well he played last year. But Sam Darnold has won QB2, which seems to leave Trey Lance on the outside looking in and probably in the trade rumor mill. I'm guessing he would probably be too much of a distraction, and it's probably more fair to him to get a shot elsewhere. And Brandon Allen will be their QB3. And wouldn't you know it, because of the Vikings' current quarterback situation and the native Minnesotan ties to Trey Lance, he is right there in the rumor mill for, the Vikings and Trey Lance in general. So I want to discuss the pros and cons of it, why it would make sense, why it wouldn't. And I think right out of the gate, this is something that has twisted in the wind Lance to the Vikings for about 2 off seasons now, especially 4 months ago during the draft. There was real sentiment that it could happen, then it didn't, and then Cousins was not extended, and then they drafted Jaren Hall, and everybody was like, all right, well, Lance will be the QB2 out there. But no, he's the QB3 that is evidently gettable via trade, probably for a low-round draft pick. If Isaiah Simmons got traded today for a 7th rounder, I don't think Trey Lance is going to cost too much more than that. All right, so here's the very first thing. I'll set the tone with Trey Lance to the Vikings. The trade theory is it would be fun. There is no doubt about it that Trey Lance, a mobile quarterback, 23 years old, on a team that doesn't have a long-term plan at quarterback, it would indeed be fun because the guy is the anti-Cousins for his skill set. Foremost, he's not very good, and Cousins is. Second of all, Lance is mobile and was supposed to be kind of Mahomes light. That's why the 49ers spent so many draft picks on him in the 2021 NFL draft. But because we just lost Adam Thielen, the eternal, hometown fairy tale to the Panthers, it would be kind of cool to have Trey Lance come in whatever role they envision and, be back in his home state. So if Kwesi Adofo-Mensah does pull the trigger on this, I would be okay with it. And, obviously it's not going to be for a 3rd round or anything higher than that. At the very most, it would be a 4th, but I highly doubt it'd even be that much. It's probably peanuts at this point. And I do think it would be fun. If Cousins was attached to this roster for the next 2 or 3 years, I would not understand it, but Cousins is not. The Vikings have very strategically not extended him beyond 2023. So let it be known, planting the flag here, that indeed trading for Trey Lance would be fun because you support a football team that has a gigantic QB1 mystery coming to live in living color in your face in February. Unless the Vikings extend Cousins tomorrow or sometime during the season, you are coming for a huge showdown about who's it going to be at QB1 for these Vikings. And it's all kind of dependent on how they play in 2023. The other thing, among many items about Lance and the Vikings, is that this is quasi-legitimate now. Ian Rappaport tweeted yesterday, specifically name-dropped the Vikings as a sensible destination for Lance. Rappaport usually doesn't just tweet stuff like his opinions about, let's look to see where this guy goes. He'd be a good fit here. That's not how Ian Rappaport has established his reputation. Usually when he tweets something, it's got some red meat to it. And that would imply that he has some connections or intel that suggests the Vikings are indeed interested in acquiring Lance, or at least seeing what the price tag would be. When we talked about this last year, it was an absolute fringe theory. The 49ers weren't going to give up on Lance. They were just getting started, and then he got hurt, and then they stumbled into Brock Purdy. So I would reasonably say that Lance to the Vikings is at its most realistic point ever right now, and then coincidentally, it'll be the cheapest you can get him throughout his 2-year NFL career now. This is going to be the low point for obtaining him via trade. So one of the main takeaways is A, it'd be fun, and B, it is a legitimate thing now. It may not have been realistic during the draft, but here we are. The guy is a QB3. The price, that is what I think some of the debate starts. He would be since he would be smart to get for a low-round draft pick. Gone are the days where it would take a second-rounder to get Trey Lance. Why? Because the 49ers have attached a QB3 label to him through their actions and their words yesterday. Nobody is going to trade a high-round draft pick for a QB3. I don't care how young he is, how promising, how much upside he is. Trey Lance's stock is at its lowest, so the Vikings this would be just like Jalen Reagor, just like Ross Blacklock, sending a low-round draft pick to the 49ers for almost a lottery ticket at this point in his career. And I think that risk is low, and it's intriguing. And I wouldn't be upset. No, I'll put it, if they don't trade for Trey Lance, I won't care either. I'll be like, all right, not going to work. But if they do, I'll be right there thinking, all right. The other thing that this does, it puts Jaren Hall in a very odd spot. Now, Jaren Hall in the first preseason game, it looked like he knew how to roll out of a pocket and throw the ball out of bounds. In the second game, also suspect offensive line play with the Vikings' third teamers. He looked a little bit better against the Titans, but we are living in the now, in the digital age, and right now Jaren Hall doesn't look very good. Even I will say that. But we can't just rule him out yet. And it would be very odd for this regime to have invested a lot of research into Jaren Hall and then given him 4 months and said, we're going to get Trey Lance. Because I don't think there's any way that they keep all 4 quarterbacks, Cousins, Mullins, Jaren Hall, and then Trey Lance. So it would almost certainly put Jaren Hall on the practice squad where he'd be susceptible to getting stolen by another team or flat out cut. Because why would you need Jaren Hall if you have Trey Lance in his fancy first-round draft stock? So I think this puts Jaren Hall, it would put him in an incredibly awkward spot if the Vikings swing the trade. Another item that I want to warn folks is that Trey Lance hasn't played long-term meaningful football since 2019. We are at 4 years, and by the time that he started to take the mantle, in theory, as the Vikings QB1, it will be 5 years since he consistently played as a QB1 for some team, some outfit. And of course, that was NDSU. But during the COVID year, didn't play much. 2021 was drafted. They stuck with Garoppolo. 2022, all right, it's time for Trey Lance. Oh, he gets hurt. 2023, he's in the trade rumor mill. Maybe he'll go to the Vikings and sit behind Cousins. There's not a lot of precedent. I don't care how optimistic. Maybe you're an NDSU grad. There's not a lot of precedent for a football player or quarterback basically taking 5 years off and then coming back and being marvelous. It would be a long shot. So I would caution anybody that maybe you loved Lance at college. Great. A lot of people did. But I think there will have been a lot of time elapsed before the Vikings need him to be QB1. So I'd really put this in a section of your brain that's like, yeah, we'll try that out. We don't expect much from it because certainly you couldn't bank on him as being the QB1 unless you're embarking on an utter rebuild, taking the competitive out of the competitive rebuild and saying, we're just going to tank it for a year with Trey Lance. If we go 4-13, great. We'll get a great draft pick in the 2025 NFL draft. I think that would have to be, in your bones for what you were thinking. Here's the deal. The Vikings would with Lance right now. Let's say your phone buzzes today at 1 p.m. and the Vikings get Trey Lance for a conditional 5th-round pick. The Vikings are trading for a QB3. That is how you need to view this. This is not getting a QB1 who was going to push Cousins to the brink in the final week of training camp or whatever it is. And it's not even somebody that you should want to see in 2023. The 49ers, who can usually insert any quarterback into their lineup under Kyle Shanahan and find a way to get deep into the postseason, they have said Trey Lance is not good enough for what we do. And that, by default, makes him an honest-to-goodness QB3 in this league. So you shouldn't be viewing this trade or trade theory as, well, we're going to get the next guy after Kirk. If you get the alert to your phone that Trey Lance is a Viking, in your brain, he should be the QB3 for 2023, and then who knows after that. Probably won't be a QB1, but it'd be really cool if he did. I don't want the narrative to think that he is the heir apparent or the plan after Cousins, because I refuse to believe that they're going to adapt on the fly and think that Trey Lance will be our our solution in 2024 when he's needed. And then the final thing, on the whole, again, I will be excited about the trade if they land him for cheap. And then if they don't, I really don't care. But I want to leave you with this thought about this Trey-Lance sweepstakes. So we know what Kirk Cousins brings to the table. He's won one single playoff game with these Vikings, and they've gotten to the postseason, twice in 5 years. Not really good. But what the man does is offer durability and consistency, and that is to the tune of 4,000 plus passing yards and about 30 touchdowns per season. And, he gets savaged for not doing more. I understand that. But if you're going to move on with somebody that is guaranteed to give you that production, do you really want it to be a half-ass solution like maybe Trey Lance turns out to be good? If this team wants to be done with Kirk Cousins at 35, and then, by the time they're getting rid of him, he'll be 36 going into the next season for the Patriots or the 49ers, whoever he plays for next. If they don't think that Kirk Cousins at age 36 is good enough for them, I want them to find a solution that has some real beef to it, whether that's trading for Kyler Murray, even though he's a little moody around the edge. I don't want them to say, well, looks like they're going with Trey Lance. Maybe that guy will work. Or I don't want some patch over shit where it's like, well, Nick Mullins is the QB1, and we're going to patch him over to Jaren Hall if things go poorly. I don't want something like that. If you're going to move on from Kirk Cousins, it shouldn't be a half-ass afterlife. It should be, all right, well, we are moving our chips into the middle of the table during next year's draft and going to get Drake May or whoever the third best QB prospect is at that time in the draft. I believe that if they do swing the trade for Trey Lance this week or next or whenever, and that is the solution for life after Cousins, you might as well just keep Cousins, because I don't want to go back to a Vikings era of half-measured solutions at QB1, because I could speak for 5 hours on this topic. The reason the Vikings don't have a Super Bowl triumph is because of quarterback instability. Of course, they lost 3 times with Tarkenton and once with Joe Cap. But after that, especially in our lifetimes as a fan, a lot of us, it's been quarterback hopscotch. It's always on to the next one, trying to find an aging veteran and squeeze the absolute prime out of them. And they haven't developed their guy. They got really close with Dante Culpepper. It felt like they were trending right with Teddy Bridgewater. But since Tarkenton left, they had some pretty damn good performance with Tommy Kramer. But after that, it's been almost 35, 40 years of not getting it right at quarterback. So if you're going to end the Cousins era, I want them to swing for the fences with a rookie quarterback in round 1 and, do it the right way. And hopefully, for the love of God, Kevin O'Connell and Kwesi Adofo-Mensah know how to scout a quarterback of the future. So as the proposed solution, Trey Lance to be the QB1 after Cousins, I'm not a big fan of that because I really don't think it's going to happen. But if they get hoodwinked into believing it, I think we're on to more of the same for Vikings football, where it's trying out stuff that might work instead of, really scouting that guy from the NFL draft and moving your chips in and trading up to get him. That's where I'm at with Trey Lance. It will be fun if he's traded for, but I will caution anybody that thinks that he's going to be the QB1 or a good one in 2024 for the Vikings or anybody. All right, that is all we got. We'll be back Friday, and then, we are only 5 days away from roster cuts to 53-man rosters. Skol, baby.